Oh, that's a family over there. Hold on, let me rewind this. That was a family over there in that corner. It looks like there are people hiding in a corner. Wow. It's crazy. This is footage from a takeover that happened out in DC this month. So this is becoming a thing, and they're having to. It's just a lot going on here. Let me show you this other situation that was going on. This is what was happening in these cities all around the U.S. I think they were just dancing in that one. Looks like they were just dancing. Let's see. Yeah, it's super chaotic. I don't know how these things are coordinated, but I want to share what this attorney had to say about it before I give my reaction. I'm gonna let her speak on it. Okay, I gotta set up. Let's go. Here we go.
In Atlanta, y'all, we've had this thing called teen takeovers, where basically, you get a large group. It's not a small group. It's a large group of teens that decide that they're going to come together and meet up somewhere and act a fool. And so you get these scenes of just mayhem, people running like crazy, all kind of like chaos. And so what has now happened is that the parents of these teens are now being charged and fined.
Rightfully so.
And parents want to know, is that lawful? Can they do that? And you got to understand, just like there are truancy laws that are out there that say, as a parent, you have a responsibility to make sure your child goes to school. And if you violate that responsibility, they can charge you. They can arrest you, or they can fine you. If you believe that is unlawful, get you an attorney that's going to challenge the constitutionality of the law. Depending on, what the argument is, you may win. But for the most part, these rules are in place so that we can govern these damn unruly teens. And y'all know I'm going to go back to beat them.
Oh,
that's my solution. Beat them. Beat them in a way that's not going to get you arrested.
That's asking a lot. That's asking people to have self-control, to beat children with the right instrument, to beat them about the right things. Like, it comes down to, she said, beat them in a way that doesn't get you arrested. I don't know if it works like that. Considering I don't have children, so I can't say. But what I will say is it makes me wonder if there's, a father in the home, like a present father, and like someone who's able to lay down law. Growing up, I had my mother and father in the home. My father worked, and my mother did the nurturing, the upbringing, and pretty much making sure the laws of the house weren't broken, and if there were, she'd take care of it. And if anything happened in a situation where she felt like she needed to tell my dad, she would then tell my dad. This is something I've always realized, like the presence of my father alone kept order in the house. Like, if we had to be inside by a certain time and my dad was home, we were going to be in the house. Now, if we had to be in the house by a certain time and my dad wasn't home, we were just dealing with our mom, we just kind of try to stretch it because that's just what it was. I mean, I don't know, for whatever reason, when you get of age, you're just more willing to try your mom than you are your dad. Like, I can't speak to it like in any intellectual sense or scientific way of what happens in the mind, but I knew that if my dad was around, it wasn't shaking. But if my mom was around, I could push back. I can get a little bit more of an attitude. I could talk back. There were certain things because, my dad wasn't around. It was just that presence. And I remember telling my mom, even as an adult, I was like, it's good that dad was around. Because if he wasn't, by by 10, in between, like, depending on how fast you hit puberty, there's nothing that your mom can do with you, because it's like the beatings that she give you, they're not really gonna hurt. And if you decide to just be like, yeah, you're not beating me no more, what can she do? You've come into puberty, you're stronger than her. So other than just being a good child, for the most part, you just gonna roam the streets however you want, because there's no presence there to hold you accountable, no presence to strike fear into that child's heart, especially boys. You need, I mean, of course, girls and boys need their father, but when a boy becomes a man and he's trying to conquer the world, that energy has to be guided. It has to be navigated the right way. That's why they try to put him in sports, try to get him involved, have mentorship, because if it's not guided, it's going to become reckless, for the most part. And that's what I see. When I see them boys out there, in that Chipotle, that was a Chipotle. When I saw them out there fighting, they're just out there trying to conquer. And I'm not saying that and saying it lightly, but I'm saying what's going on. They're out there trying to conquer. So, for example, I had a couple mentees when I was living in Florida, and one of my mentees, especially when he got in high school, he would always test his strength. So he would want to wrestle. And that's just something that's innate in young boys. They're trying to figure out how strong they are. Are they at that man strength yet? They're just trying to figure out how to conquer where they land in the space of manhood and strength. And the good thing, these are good young boys, and turned to be, good young men. But imagine if they didn't have that presence. If they didn't have someone to test their strengths. And they also had very present mothers. I want to say that they had very present mothers. Their fathers weren't around, but they had very present mothers, and these just so happened to be good young boys. They, normally single parent homes don't turn out this way for young boys. Unfortunately, especially young boys who don't have a present father. These were just good boys, and they went on, and they're continuing on to do good things. But that's part of development and manhood. You want to get out there and conquer. So when I see them, they're out there fighting, they're establishing territory, establishing dominance. God has called men to do that, young boys to become men and to do that. But it's supposed to be guided a certain way. And violence is not the way. And I don't know what these takeovers are, but I've been hearing about them all going on all around the U.S., teens setting up like, hey, we're all going to meet here at this location. And they go there and they just act up. And I could never do that as a child. For one, like I said, my mom and my dad didn't play that. And then two, my dad was around. He was an enforcer. All he had to do was look at us. And it was like, oh my goodness, that fear would come over us. So to imagine all these children just out running the streets late at night to a point to where you have to give a curfew. And then even to the point to where you're like, hey, you know what? We're going to start, charging the parents. The parents are going to have to be charged for this. It must be really, really bad. But this channel is all about hope. And I do believe this behavior can be solved. Of course, you're not going to be able to help everybody, because everybody doesn't want to be helped. But there's hope out there, and help for these young men, these young teens. And I think it comes down to us as adults being there. Whether they have parents at home or not, we have to show up in some way, shape, or form. And one of those ways, one of my buddies, one of the ways he gives back is he goes out and volunteers. And I want to share a message that he randomly sent to me when he went out and volunteered recently. Actually, this week he went. So I'm going to read this. It says, good evening, bro. Hope your week is off to a good start. I went to volunteer at middle school and I blacked it out. So this afternoon, and right when I walked into campus, a group of students came up to me and the volunteer coordinator and asked if they can pray with us. So of course we said, yeah. We all locked hands. and one of the students led a beautiful prayer. It was such a heartwarming act from the young brothers who couldn't have been older than 12 to 13 years old. Maybe they learned it from their parents or seen it on social media, but either way, it shows this young generation has hope and are seeking guidance from their faith. I bring it up because it made me think of your brand and good word that you're spreading. Keep it up, bro. So, what this tells me, is that these young men, their energy, these young boys and these young girls, their energy is not being guided by adults properly. We're not giving them the tools to optimize their talents, their gifts, their strengths, and it's on us. And me sharing hope, from this platform is one thing, but being present is another. We have to be present. Parents have to be present as adults. We can't, of course we work, we have our own responsibilities. If you're married, if you have children, like it's a lot, but we have to figure out a way to move society forward in a healthy way, to be present. And I think volunteering is a way, at schools, being engaged, even at our churches, because, when I grew up, there were wayward children in church. There are wayward children in church now. And it's just about being present. So I don't know what you do, but this is my challenge, right? For those who are watching this. Rather than us jumping on these children, right? Because there needs to be order, there needs to be consequences. And I'm with laws being put in place to, take care of this. And trusted authority. Follow me when I say that. Trusted authority. People who actually care about these children and don't want to just get out there and just, stomp them to the ground and cause harm to them, just because they're acting up. So I believe in being firm, but I also believe that there need to be nurturing done in these type of situations. So I just challenge you, for one, let's be praying. Let's be praying for this next generation, for what's ahead for these children, and let's be also praying for guidance for how we can respond to this cry out, because this behavior is simply children crying out for help, for hope, for love, for guidance. That's what's going on. They're acting this way because they don't know what's going on inwardly, and this is just a reaction to whatever chaos is happening inwardly. Of course, kids are going to be mischievous. The Bible says foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction, guidance, that's not just beating kids. I know the attorney said beat them in a way that don't get you arrested, but that's just not beating kids. That's the rod of correction. Can be presence, can be conversation, can be prayer, could be, counseling. It could also be, getting on that behind, right? But it's all those things, guiding their energy, helping them, learn how to optimize that energy that they have in the right way. Because if my classmates would tell you from, middle school and high school, they wouldn't tell you that I would be the one, sharing this. And a lot of people thought I'd be locked up in jail, doing bad things. But God had another plan. Because my energy needed to be guided. Yeah, my dad was there, but I still had energy when I went to school. So, I didn't play sports and stuff like that. So I had a lot of energy that needed to be guided. And that's the same thing that needs to happen with these children. I don't want to go on too long. So I just challenge you, not just, look at these videos and say, man, them kids bad. No, but, not even just pray, but ask God how you can give back to the next generation, even if it's you giving to your children and connecting with their friends, because I'm sure some of their friends have challenges, but just figure out a way and see what you can do. But make sure you subscribe to the channel. Check us out online, www.there'shopebrand.com, and y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section. I'll catch y'all in the next video.